Growing up as a kid, yeah. All a nigga wanna have was a Burberry scarf and $3 in my pocket. Instead I got beat with a switch, but I don't give a fuck, but it's on my body. Scars all up on me, but I run around from.
How good will the Baltimore Ravens defense be this upcoming NFL season in 2020? Now, the Baltimore Ravens last year had a really good defense. They had one of the best defenses in the NFL last season. Now, when you look at the Baltimore Ravens, the strength of their defense is their secondary. And you can make the argument that the Ravens have the best secondary in the NFL. Now, if you were to ask a random person on the street who watches football or who watches the NFL and ask them which team in the NFL has the best secondary, a lot of people are going to say the New England Patriots. But I think it is an argument to be made that the Baltimore Ravens deserve to be claimed as the best secondary in the NFL. Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, and Earl Thomas. I mean, hey, to be honest, I wouldn't be mad if Ravens fans came out here and said that we have a better secondary than the New England Patriots. Because based on the performance that we saw from that secondary last year, I would agree. Now, it's really hard to make that argument because New England's secondary was lights out as well. But, I mean, you can make that same argument and say that Baltimore deserves to be claimed as the best secondary in the NFL. So I wouldn't get mad at any Ravens fans if they were to make that argument. And I wouldn't disagree with you. So this Ravens secondary still remains to be one of the best secondaries in the NFL. Still got Marlon Humphrey, who had a breakout year last year. He had 3 interceptions, 14 pass deflections. You got Marcus Peters, who basically got traded and basically had a career resurgence. And he ended up being an All-Pro. He had 2 interceptions and 10 pass deflections. Then you got Jimmy Smith, Tavon Young. Then you got Earl Thomas in the backfield, Chuck Clark. And, I mean, this secondary is really good. Now, a guy who I really want to see a lot more out of is Deshaun Elliott. Now, I am a big Deshaun Elliott fan. Deshaun Elliott is one of my favorite NFL players, despite not really getting that much playing time. And he has always been one of my favorite players to watch ever since his days dating back to Texas. Like, I was really upset at the fact that the Ravens took him and not Pittsburgh a couple of years back in that 2018 NFL draft. Like, I was really upset. I was like, bro, why would we take Edmonds over Deshaun Elliott? That was a little bit ridiculous to me, but I mean, hey, the Ravens got him. I'm still a little bit salty about that, but I would really love to see Deshaun Elliott get a little bit more involved in the defense. Now, is that probably going to happen? I don't really know unless injury takes place or something like that. Now, the thing with Deshaun Elliott, this is a guy who always makes a lot of noise in the offseason. Like, the last 2 seasons, all you saw was how great Deshaun Elliott was, especially in the preseason and training camp. But the thing is, by the time the regular season gets here, he can't really stay healthy. Now, if Deshaun Elliott can stay healthy, I really want to see him get a significant part in this Ravens defense. Will it happen? I don't really think so, but I mean, I would like to see it happen as a Deshaun Elliott fan. Now you got to get to the linebacker position. Now, the linebacker position was probably the biggest hole on this Baltimore Ravens defense last season, and we saw it. We saw some games that linebacking core got absolutely exposed. Against Tennessee, oh my goodness. Against Cleveland when Nick Chubb went ballistic, and I mean, Ravens fans, I'm pretty sure a lot of Ravens fans will agree with me that linebacker was probably the weakest position on the Baltimore Ravens defense. Like, that linebacking group was not good, and it really wasn't good in the past. So what did the Baltimore Ravens do to address that? Oh, you just go ahead and you get Patrick Queen, one of the best coverage linebackers in this past year's NFL draft. You get a guy who runs a fast 40, who can play sideline to sideline, good tackler in space, athletic, aggressive, and very good in pass coverage. He can cover tight ends across the middle. He can cover routes across the middle. So, I mean, you got a guy in Patrick Queen who can do it all. So, I mean, Patrick Queen, in my opinion, was a home run hit. And to be honest, I had Patrick Queen going to the Baltimore Ravens in several of my mock drafts. And I mean, when he ended up getting drafted by Baltimore, and when Baltimore's pick came up in the first round and he was still on the board, I said, man, look, how much you want to bet they go ahead and they take Patrick Queen? What happened? They went ahead and they took Patrick Queen. Now, if Kenneth Murray was there, then maybe they would have took Kenneth Murray. But I still liked the Patrick Queen a little bit more than I liked the Kenneth Murray. But either way, I knew Patrick Queen was going to the Baltimore Ravens. So you get Patrick Queen, you get Malik Harrison. So, I mean, you got a pretty young group of linebackers there. And those linebackers should be a lot better than what you had to work with at linebacker last year, because our linebacker group last year for Baltimore was absolutely terrible. Why would it? Let me take that back. I wouldn't say it was terrible, but I mean, it wasn't great. I mean, go back and watch that game versus Cleveland. Go back and watch that game versus Tennessee. So then the biggest improvement I like is the defensive line, and the defensive line was already pretty solid. Now, they franchise tag Matthew Judon, who a lot of Ravens fans think is really overrated. I don't know why Matthew Judon is considered overrated by Baltimore Ravens fans. Like, you guys are going to have to tell me that down in the comment section down below, Ravens fans, why you feel Matthew Judon is overrated. But I mean, he got a franchise tag. I don't know, like, I don't know what kind of money he thinks that he's worth, because he's not worth being paid like a top tier pass rusher. Like, I think Matthew Judon is a B-level pass rusher. I don't think he's an elite pass rusher, but I do think if he has the pieces up front to help him out and a good defensive coordinator that knows how to utilize him, then yeah, I think he'd be pretty good, but I don't think he's worth being paid the money that he's trying to ask for and things like that. I think that's why Baltimore ended up franchise tagging him. Now, I don't know if they're going to trade him or not. I don't really think they want to trade him. I still think they want to give him one more year to prove himself, to prove that he's worth enough being one of the highest paid pass rushers in the NFL. But I mean, a lot of Ravens fans say that Matthew Judon is a little bit overrated. I don't really know how he's overrated. You guys are going to have to tell me that. But you got Matthew Judon. Then you also bring in Calais Campbell, who you basically robbed from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I know a lot of people always talk about Calais Campbell's age, but even though Calais Campbell is up there in age, he's still one of the better interior pass rushers that we have in the NFL. And when you think about it, Calais Campbell during his time in Arizona didn't really get a lot of attention. He didn't really get a lot of attention from a lot of people around the NFL until he got to Jacksonville. And by that point, he was already in the older stage of his NFL career. But I still think despite Calais Campbell being up there in age, the Ravens can still get at least 2-3 productive seasons out of him, where you can at least get about at least 7, maybe 8.5 sacks and potentially a Pro Bowl. He's also really good against the run as well. Then you also got Derek Wolfe, I'm not really expecting a lot out of him when it comes to stopping the pass. I mean, he should be pretty stout against the run, but when it comes from a pass rushing perspective, I'm not expecting him to do anything incredible. Then you also got Brandon Williams, who is another guy who is really good against the run. Then you got Justin Matabuke, the rookie that they drafted in this past year's NFL draft. You got Dalen Mack. So, I mean, you got a pretty good defense when it comes to their ability to stop the run. And last year, they were pretty good stopping the run. They were 7th in the NFL in rushing yards per game allowing the 100.6 rushing yards per game. So I still expect this defense to be really good when it comes to stopping the run. So then you also got Pernell McPhee, then a guy who I really like a lot that a lot of Ravens fans aren't really talking about, who I think is going to have a breakout season, is going to be Jalen Ferguson. Now, Jalen Ferguson in his rookie season coming out of Louisiana Tech was a guy who I feel should have went in the first round, but he had a couple of character issues, and a lot of people had a lot of question marks concerning his character coming out, and that's why he ended up falling to the Baltimore Ravens the way that he did. But I mean, I felt he was a first round selection. Now, he only had 2.5 sacks last year in 2019, but I mean, I expected him to have a big year for the Baltimore Ravens. I think he's a guy who could probably end up having 8.5 sacks, maybe more, if he ends up getting the significant amount of snaps needed. And I mean, listen, if Jalen Ferguson breaks out, then you probably could see the Baltimore Ravens end up trading Matthew Judon if Jalen Ferguson ends up having the season I expect him to have. So, I mean, overall, this is a really good defense. This still should be a top 5, at worst a top 10 defense, but I still think this defense is going to be top 5. This defense hasn't really lost that much, really didn't really lose nothing of significance, really, in my opinion, in the offseason. So this defense, with how good that secondary was, with Marlon Humphrey, still got Marcus Peters, you got Tavon Young, you got Jimmy Smith, then you got Earl Thomas, Chuck Clark, and Deshaun Elliott in the secondary. I mean, this defense should be really good. Then you still got defensive coordinator Martindale, who what I'm about to say, a lot of you Ravens fans aren't going to like, but I think it's going to be the truth. I don't think Martindale is going to be the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens for too much longer, because I think he's going to end up getting a head coaching job some way, somehow, in either at the end of next season or the season after. But I mean, I'm not expecting Martindale to remain in Baltimore any longer, because I think a lot of teams and a lot of front offices are starting to recognize the work that he's did with that defense in Baltimore. So I'm not expecting him to remain on that Ravens staff any longer as a defensive coordinator. I think we're going to see him become an NFL head coach eventually down the road. But overall, I think the Ravens are still going to have one of the best defenses in the NFL. They got better. I mean, you add Calais Campbell, and if they don't trade Matthew Judon and with Jalen Ferguson, I mean, this defensive line is going to be even better than what it was last year when it comes to their ability to get after the quarterback. So you guys let me know how you guys feel about the Ravens defense. I think this defense, like I said, is going to be really good. So, I mean, let me know what you guys think.